Hi everyone, Dr. Ann. I have some information that Melissa and I have been talking about, and some of you have met Melissa in the office and some of you have not. She and I do work very closely together in a lot of our nutritional programs, and it was at her encouragement that we start to look a little more deeply at why we do enzyme nutrition. We feel like there's a missing piece in the educational process of our patients, so that you're coming in for all of your assessments and your functional testing and having a report of findings and going home with enzyme supplementation and not really understanding why you're getting enzyme nutrition. A lot of people aren't understanding why they would continue with enzyme nutrition. So I'm going to start a series of videos on Facebook, and then they'll be available within the office as well, so that we can start educating you about the enzymes and what they do. There are many different kinds of enzymes. There are different purposes for the enzymes. A couple of very key things that you should know about Loomis enzymes from the Enzyme Formulation Institute is that they are designed to work in the acidity of the stomach. The stomach is very acid. Most of the other enzymes that you will find in the marketplace, and there is a multitude of them, they don't work until you get to the alkalinity, the opposite, alkalinity, in the small intestine. And there's a lot that can happen in the digestive process from the time we eat the food and start chewing it in our mouth and the time that it gets to, excuse me, the small intestine. So what we're looking at when we do your functional testing is normal physiology. What happens to food when we eat it? Most people discount that. What happens once it gets in the mouth and we start chewing? Most people don't know that we have 3 distinct sets of salivary glands. We have one set that secretes amylase, which is to digest carbohydrates, one that secretes protease to digest protein, and one that secretes lipase to digest fats. When the body is chewing food, when you are chewing food and those secretions are happening, the brain has a way of knowing how much enzyme it's going to need as we go through our physiological processes, as it travels down the road of our digestive tract. So the stomach will know how much acidity has to happen and how much hydrochloric acid it has to make in the gut. So these are what we call an adaptive response. So when we do our functional testing and I examine you, I'm looking for where is the breakdown in that normal process. So if we can figure out where it's broken, then we can direct our attention to the repairing of it. So once the cause is known, the solution becomes obvious, and that's the premise that we work from. So I have this beautiful chart that Melissa made for me, and I would like to just talk to you about your macronutrients. So those are your foods. When people don't feel well, their first choice when they go to the marketplace or the store is to buy a vitamin. So if you have a cold, it might be vitamin C or an herb like echinacea. But what we have to recognize is, where do those vitamins come in? And so in the office, I talk about school buses, and I talk about 3 school buses: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And sometimes I call it Mrs. Carbohydrate, Mr. Protein, and Mr. Fat. So if these school buses come to pick up your children, what are they picking up? What do they carry into the body? So first of all, we're looking at sources of energy. Now, carbohydrates, they are the body's preferred source of fuel, and that's all they do. They provide energy. The brain, the heart, and the eyes are glucose hogs. The brain will take that energy first. Proteins, they do a couple of different things. They certainly provide energy. They are the only macronutrient that can generate and repair our tissues, and they also regulate in the body. So plasma proteins, they are carried in the blood, plasma. They carry the nutrients into the body, and they also remove waste in the body. Very important. 90% of the women that I see are protein deficient. And then we go to fats. So fats can be used for energy. They are a means for us to store energy, and they also maintain our cellular membranes. Our cellular membranes are made up of phospholipids and a double layer of those. So if those lipids aren't adequate in the body, then those phospholipid cell membranes are not adequate to prevent pathogens or bacteria or virus from attacking our cells, and they don't help us in terms of getting nutrients in and out of the cell either. So those are what we do for sources of energy. But as I said, I look at these as school buses. So these school buses carry different things. And you'll see down below here that the chart is kind of split. So carbohydrates and proteins, they carry in our water-soluble vitamins. Those are all of your B vitamins, B1, 2, 3, 6, B12, folic acid, vitamin C. Those are all water-soluble vitamins. So if you're lacking those, you may be having a difficult time digesting and utilizing either carbohydrates or proteins. It may not mean that you're really deficient in the vitamins because they're lacking. It may mean that they're coming in on your carbohydrates and proteins. Your fruits and your vegetables are carbohydrates, but you can't get them into the body, and we're going to look at that. Fat soluble, again, your fat soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, E, and K, those come in attached to fats. And then we get to minerals. So we have sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Lots of people taking magnesium. Those come in attached to carbohydrates. And then we have our acid minerals, which is our sulfur, our phosphorus, and our chloride. And those come in attached to proteins and fats or lipids. And I don't know if anybody's caught on here, but did you notice there's no calcium listed here? It's because calcium is neutral. Calcium can come in attached to carbohydrates, proteins, or fats, and that'll be discussion later as we could get into some of our questions that women in particular ask me about their bone density issues. So I just wanted to give you an overall picture of how the macronutrients supply us with energy and nutrition. And then what I want to show you today, which I've talked to people in the office about, is what's called the oatmeal test. So I have 3 glasses of oatmeal that I've made here this morning. I have 3 sets of enzymes. I have enzymes that are more weighted for amylase, for carbohydrates. I have one weighted for protease to digest protein, and then I have one weighted for lipase to digest fats. I'm going to add these to the glasses, and I want you to see what happens, because the first enzymes that we will talk about are your pre-digestive enzymes. They're the enzymes that you take with your first bite of food. We are using them to pre-digest the food. What does that mean? It means in addition to the enzymes secreted in your saliva, these are going to help to work at the level of the stomach to expose more surface area of the food. The more surface area, the better breakdown, the better those foods, the smaller they are, so that they can get across the gut wall into our bloodstream to be carried to all the cells, tissues, and organs that require that nutrition. So if we don't get proper breakdown, then we can't get those foods across the gut wall, assimilation. So we get underutilization. So that means that those foods stay stuck in the intestinal tract, they don't get utilized, and then we have all kinds of issues in the gut. Could be parasitic, could be candida, those types of problems. So I just want you to see the oatmeal test, because a lot of you are taking enzymes at home and you're not really sure why you're taking them. And this is going to give you a good example of why. So let me open these up. And so these are 2 capsules, just like you would take with your meals. So that is actually Pan. This middle cup here, this is Bill that I'm putting in here. Enzymes are the workers. They do all the work. So just like if you were going to have a porch put on your house, they could drop off the supplies, which is your food. But if you don't have the workers to come and install it, then the supplies will never get utilized. So if we don't have the enzymes to work on our food, now think about, see, I want you to just watch how thick that oatmeal is. I'm just going to give them each a quick stir just to get them a little incorporated, and then I'll come back and stir again. I want you to also be thinking about exactly how much time is elapsing here, because it's not going to be very much. So I'm coming back to that first cup again. So when the food gets to the stomach, it stays there for a good 45 minutes or more before it starts to liquefy into what we call chyme and move into the small intestine. Now, I don't know, can you see how much more liquid is already in that? Those enzymes are working on that oatmeal there. And it's much more liquidy than when we started. And again, we're probably just a minute or so in here. But I guess my point that I'm making using the different enzymes is that all of our enzyme products are weighted for specific things, but they all will digest the food because they still have enzymes for all the macronutrients. So as we go, they get more and more liquidy. I'm sure that you can see this by now, especially in this first glass that's had the most time to work. And so this is why we call it the oatmeal test. So this takes the stress off your body. So we always talk about treating your source of stress, and we can let those just sit for a minute. So we look at the source of stress that you have. And sometimes the source of stress is a nutritional stress. Emotional stress, gosh, you know, the first thing that we have when we're emotionally stressed is sometimes your stomach doesn't feel so good. You get butterflies in your stomach. So that's going to impact your digestion. But this is a source of stress that can be relieved with an enzyme. So when your body can't do it, the enzyme makes up where your body is not able to. And you can see now pretty clearly that there's quite a bit of liquid in here. So I'm hoping that today was a good piece of information for you, and it's something that you'll go back and revisit. And so you can maybe look at the before and the after of the oatmeal and just see exactly how much digestion has already taken place. And remember that there's the motility in your gut, and this is going to act on that food for at least another 45 minutes, in addition to the acidity that your stomach will produce to help digest it as well. So these are pre-digestive enzymes, and I'll see what topic I choose for you next time, and it'll be a surprise because I'm just going to sort of follow the energy, and Melissa and I will talk about what might be the next best step to educate you. Hope you enjoyed it.